Mr. Newmark, 11 minutes after 8, listening to that Jonathan Davis, who's an economist and wealth manager. We've got the political view. Let's speak to an economist. What do you think makes people vote the way they do, Mr. Davis? Good morning.
Good morning, Nick. I think the politician there is very astute. People have a gut feeling when they're standing in front of the ballot box. And he's quite right. People are not policy wonks. They don't look at the detail. Basically, what it comes down to, in my personal view, is that people vote the way their newspaper tells them to vote.
Really? Do you think newspapers have that much power, Mr. Davis?
Absolutely. As he said, the headline is there will be no new taxes, and yet that's not what he said. And yet a whole load of people will take it on board at face value. There will be no new taxes. Well, of course, we don't actually know what will happen in the next government. Can I please get to the question of whether or not there will be taxes or tax rises next time? And this is where I'm going to differ with practically every politician on the planet, because in the country, because as far as I can see, these politicians pretend, as we approach a general election, that there is a grand canyon of difference between them. You know, you watch the Question Time program, and they pretend there is vast amount of difference between policies. The reality on economics, there is a 1% difference in their budgeting. 1%. Because both of them, all of them, should I say, what they don't tell the great British public is that they are borrowing. All of them would want to borrow over £100 billion a year. So they can pretend whatever they want about taxes and spending and this and that, because you know that they obfuscate, they deflect from the reality that to finance their activities, they're borrowing the equivalent of an average family borrowing £1,000 a month just to stand still. Well, you and I both know that is unsustainable.
I hear you, Mr. Davis, and yet when you hear the Chancellor say, I don't think we've reached the end point in reforming welfare, there will be a number of people who listen to that who think, they could be coming after me or us.
Yeah, they haven't even hardly started to reform such things because, as I say, when you have government finances, forget that it's the Tories and Lib Dems or the Labours, it doesn't matter. They are politicians. A government whose tax revenues are about $650 billion a year, average family equivalent $65,000 a year, spending £77,000 a year, or in government numbers, $770 billion. In other words, the government finances are shot to pieces. We've got practically no economic growth, and yet they're borrowing over £100 billion a year.
Jonathan Davis, thank you. Quick response from Brooks Newmark on the idea that the welfare reforms are not over. What do you think voters might make of that, Mr. Newmark?
Yeah, and I think by the way, your last speaker is absolutely right. And as someone who's come from a business background, who spent 20 years of his life trying to turn around businesses, getting the country to live within its means is a huge challenge. And the problem is that the voters out there, when they hear numbers like 100 billion, it sort of doesn't resonate with them. But he's absolutely right. To put it in terms of £1,000 a month is a very good figure to use. And this is the challenge this government has. And this government is trying to have clear blue water between itself and the other parties.
And I will leave it there. Brooks Newmark, Conservative MP for Braintree, sits on the Treasury Select Committee. Indeed, asked the Chancellor the question that's produced some of these headlines. Jonathan Davis, economist and wealth manager, thanks to you.